Any more questions about what we were just discussing? Otherwise, I want to move in to another meditation. Okay, let's meditate. So again, we'll be focusing on ourselves as a person, looking for, see if there is a findable me here, slightly different to what we did before. But let's have a look, see if we can find the me. So allowing your awareness to descend into the body, simply becoming aware of sensations throughout the body. And using the out breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. Allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. And relaxing more deeply with every out breath. And with each out breath, letting go of any thoughts that may have arisen. Allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. Focusing on the sensations of the breath throughout the body. And maintaining an ongoing flow of mindfulness of the sensations of the breath throughout the entire cycle of each in and out breath. Now, do you have a sense that there is a me here who is meditating? A me who is trying to relax the body and focus the mind on the breath. A me that doesn't seem to depend upon anything else to exist. Do you have this experience? Can me, the meditator, be found anywhere? Can the me who is meditating be found anywhere within the body? So search thoroughly every part of the body and look for the me who is meditating. Is the meditator somewhere inside the head? Is the brain the me who is meditating? Or is the brain simply something which I possess? Something which me, the meditator, is using? Is the whole body itself? Is that the me who is meditating? Or is the whole body itself simply something which I possess? Something which me, the meditator, is trying to relax? Is the me who is meditating to be found anywhere within the mind? So again, search thoroughly every part of the mind and see if you can find the me who is meditating. Are any of the thoughts, emotions, or concepts in the mind, are any of these the me who is meditating? Or are thoughts, emotions, and concepts simply things which I have, things that me, the meditator, possesses? Is the mind itself the me who is meditating? Or is the mind itself simply something which I possess, something which me, the meditator, is using to focus on the breath? Is the combination of the body and the mind, is that the me who is meditating? Or is the combination of the body and the mind simply two things which I possess, two things which me, the meditator, is trying to relax and train? But apart from the body and the mind, what else is there here? if there's nothing more than the body and the mind here, then where is the me who is trying to relax and train this body and mind? Where is the me who is meditating? And even if you didn't find the me, isn't there someone who's experiencing all of this? So there is a me meditating. But just because we don't seem to be able to find it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It simply means it's empty of findable, independent existence. But that doesn't mean there's no meditator at all. Me, the meditator, is something merely labeled on the basis of the body that is sitting here and the mind that is focusing on the breath. The merely labeled me is sitting here meditating. And then release all appearances and simply allow the mind to come to rest. Simply rest within the experience of awareness itself. Simply being aware of being aware. Does anyone have any questions about that meditation? We're going to be looking at how that meditation is sort of structured tomorrow morning, but I thought it'd be good to practice a bit today and then again tomorrow morning, so that when we talk about it, we have some idea about what we're talking about. Okay, then I've got a few more things to cover this afternoon before we finish up. So remember, we said that when we look out on the world around us, we receive a mass of sense data, and that actually to make sense or meaning out of all of this data, to be able to function, we have to draw lines and create objects. So we have to do that, and we have to give them names. So again, nothing wrong with that. We have to do it, otherwise we couldn't function. The problem is, of course, is that we don't realize that's what we're doing. We believe that the world is already divided up into many separate, discrete things. And so what we're doing is effectively turning our lines into boundaries. So we're seeing the world as full of boundaries. We're seeing the world as full of many separate, discrete things. So again, what's the problem with that? That's the problem. We went through that. So if we see the world is made up of many separate, discrete things, then of course when we have a certain experience, if we have a pleasant experience of that object, together with the belief that it is a separate, discrete object, independent of us, then of course we naturally assume there must be some attractive quality in that object that's causing my pleasant experience. Therefore, of course, we want pleasant experiences. That object seems to be causing my pleasant experience. I want that object, attachment. Alternatively, if it's an unpleasant experience, aversion, and so on. So this is how turning lines into boundaries and seeing the world as made up of many separate things, seeing the world as existing independent of us, leads to our mental afflictions and suffering. We looked at that already yesterday and again this morning. Now, one of the difficulties that we encounter when we come into this Vipashyana practice of emptiness is that we often flip between extremes. So generally we are stuck in the first extreme, the extreme of existence, believing and grasping onto everything as existing independently. And of course, the antidote to that extreme is to investigate this supposed independent world and independent me and come to realize that nothing exists independently. So the antidote here is emptiness, is to come to realize there is no independent me, no independent world. But often what happens, of course, when we start to do this investigation and come to realize this, then we simply often flip from this extreme to the other extreme. And that is the extreme of non-existence or nihilism. Because for us now, there only seems to be two options, two possibilities. Either there is this real, supposedly independent functioning world, or there's no world. Because the only me and world that we've related to and experienced in our entire life is a supposed independent me, independent world. So if we start to undermine this, then we don't see any other possibility. We often then simply come to the conclusion, oh, therefore nothing exists because I can't find anything anymore. So therefore, if it's not findable, it doesn't exist. So of course, this is just an invalid interpretation of the emptiness experience. So to help us to overcome the extreme of non-existence or nihilism, we can reflect on dependent arising. To reflect on the fact that things do exist depending on causes and conditions, parts, and labeling. And so, of course, here then we have that classic statement in the Heart Sutra, which some of us looked at on Thursday evening, where it says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So those two statements are basically saying that things are empty of independent existence, and because of that, things can appear and function. They are dependent arisings. So we are to understand that emptiness and dependent arising are like two sides of a coin. Now, for us, they seem to be contradictory. And we hear people say, oh, it doesn't matter, everything's empty, so nothing matters. So for us, then we sort of are trapped, and we see that these things are contradictory, that emptiness and functioning world appear to be contradictory. Saying statements like, oh, because everything's empty, it doesn't matter. So what we will come to appreciate as we really deepen our emptiness practice is that we'll understand because things are empty, they can function. And because things function, they must be empty of independent existence. If we really can come to appreciate that, our emptiness practice is going in a very good direction. Because if this cup was a cup from its own side, if its unique nature was to be a cup, then actually it couldn't function. You couldn't create it, you couldn't destroy it, it couldn't change, because its nature is to be a cup. But because its nature is not to be a cup, because it's empty of inherent nature, empty of inherent existence, therefore it can function, it can change, you can create it, you can destroy it. So this is a measure of how our emptiness practice is going. To really appreciate, because things are empty, therefore they can function, and because they function, they must be empty of independent existence. So that's really a measure of emptiness practice. And there's a very nice little saying from that great Indian master Nagarjuna, who says something related to this. He says, that which arises dependently on and relatedly is explained as being empty, and that which is empty is dependently designated. This is the middle way path. So this is the middle way path we're trying to find. Now, to help us appreciate the idea of emptiness, then often a number of analogies are used in the text. Often in Buddhist texts, when they describe some new concept, they'll give some simple analogy to relate to that so you can better understand that concept. Here in emptiness, there are a lot of different analogies that are used. One analogy that I particularly like and I find very helpful is the analogy of a dream. Now, when we're dreaming, there appears to be a dream me here, and there appears to be an independent dream world out there, which means in the dream, if we encounter something pleasant or unpleasant, then often we end up with a lot of craving and attachment and aversion and fear and anxiety in the dream. But if suddenly within the dream we become lucid, so we're not waking up, where we become lucid, meaning we're in the dream and we realize that it's a dream, then there still will appear to be an independent dream me here. There'll still appear to be an independent dream world there. But because we're lucid now, we will directly realize that this appearance is deceiving us. That we'll realize that this dream world is a product of our mind, which means that if we encounter something pleasant or unpleasant in the dream while being lucid, it becomes very difficult to develop any attachment and aversion, and we would enjoy the dream a hell of a lot more. This view of emptiness is saying everything is like a dream, meaning that in our waking world now, we are asleep with ignorance, meaning there appears to be an independent me here and an independent world out there, and we believe in those appearances. which means if something pleasant or unpleasant presents itself to us, we end up with attachment and aversion, have a lot of difficulties. But if we wake up from our sleep of ignorance, if we become lucid in the waking state by realizing emptiness, then there still will appear to be an independent me here. There'll still appear to be an independent world out there. But because we're lucid now through having realized emptiness, we'll directly realize that these appearances are deceiving us. We'll realize that this world is also a product of our mind, which means that if we encounter something pleasant or unpleasant in our waking state now, it becomes very difficult to develop any attachment and aversion, and we would enjoy our waking life a hell of a lot more. So this is an analogy that I find particularly helpful in understanding the idea of emptiness. One more thing. We said that when we look out on the world, to make sense of this world, we have to draw these lines and create objects and give them names. But very often in our experience, the very first line we draw is we draw a line around here and we create the experiencer, because there's single experience. And within single experience, there are two aspects, experiencer and experienced. And we have to distinguish that to make sense of our experience. So we have to draw a line and give a name, me or subject or experience or whatever name we wish. But again, the problem is we don't realize this is what we're doing. That in that experience, we turn this line into a boundary. We immediately grasp onto independent me. We believe there's an independent me here and an independent world of experience. And of course, this is called self-grasping, grasping onto independent me. But that self-grasping is actually completely illogical. To highlight that, we can ask a question. Is this big? Is this big? Is it big?
It depends.
Depends on
your size.
So you can't have big and small. You can't have big on its own. Big can only exist relative to small. Just like that, up can only exist relative to down, in to out. Just like that, you can only have me if there's not me. That not me can be you, the world. You can only have subject if there's object. You can only have experiencer if there's experienced. But when we grasp onto the experiencer part of experience and believe there's an independent me here, that's exactly like saying this is big. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's completely illogical. We are completely out of sync with reality. And of course, when we are out of sync with reality, then we have a lot of difficulties in terms of our behavior and we have a lot of suffering. Now, often in our experiences, we have a lot of this self-grasping. We have often quite strong self-grasping because we're often very much focused on the me, the agent, me doing this, me going there, me saying this. It's always me, 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 me with this self-grasping. So we're completely out of sync with reality. But sometimes we don't have such strong self-grasping. And that often happens when we're more focused on the activity than the agent, the me. For example, when we're absorbed in reading a good book, absorbed in watching an interesting program on TV, absorbed in solving a problem at work. On those occasions, we're more focused on the activity than the agent, the me. So what happens, of course, is the self-grasping is a little bit less because we're not so heavily focused on the me. And we know from our own experience, when we're in those focused states, things seem to flow a lot better. Time seems to go quite quickly. Why? Because we're more in sync with reality. We're not struggling or fighting against reality so much because self-grasping is a little bit reduced. And this is very much highlighted in people who've developed a high level of focus in their activity. professional musicians, professional athletes have spent thousands of hours training in their activity. And then often what happens when they engage in that activity, due to their high level of focus, they often report that they're in the zone, the flow state. So much so that they often say, oh, there was no sense of me. There was just the music playing. There was just a sporting activity happening. Of course, what's happening there is self-grasping is very much reduced. Not only do they report this, but they often then report peak performance, optimum performance, because they're not fighting against reality so much due to the very low level of self-grasping. But this is, of course, just through the power of concentration. That through the power of concentration, we can reduce the self-grasping a little bit. What we're talking about here in Vipassana practice, of course, is not just reducing self-grasping, but eliminating self-grasping through wisdom, to come to realize there is no independent me, to come to realize there's no boundary here, to come to realize, in fact, there's not one single boundary in the entire universe. And if we can realize this, we can realize boundless love and compassion for others. Because now, of course, we feel there's a me here and a them there. And there seems to be this gap or distance between us and others, which means that it's quite difficult to fully develop love and compassion for others. But through the Vipassana practice, if we realize there's no boundary between us and anyone else, then it's said that through that realization of emptiness, our level of compassion and loving kindness to others will literally explode to a level we never thought possible. Because now, for the very first time, we're not seeing or experiencing this supposed gap or barrier between us and others. So this is what we're going to be continuing to look at tomorrow morning, is have a look at the emptiness practice, particularly focused on ourselves as a person. And then I want to look at this emptiness practice also in terms of focusing on the mind. And then also tomorrow morning, I'd like to look at how to progress in the spiritual path through the Vipassana practice, and how then later in the afternoon, how to integrate that into our daily life. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Is there any questions before we slowly wrap up today? Because I want to finish with a short meditation. But before that, is there any last questions? Or everyone's head's exploding.
Yeah.
Well, to help the exploding heads, then we're going to do another corpse posture meditation, Shavasana meditation, where we can lie down and relax and chill. So that's what we're going to do now. Then we can release a lot of this tension. So again, just find some cushions, find yourself a bit of space. So again, lying flat on the back, feet slightly apart, hands a little bit, arms a little bit away from the body, palms facing upward. If you feel a little bit cold, of course, you can put a blanket or a shawl over the body. And then also you may find a small cushion under your head also helps to make yourself a bit more comfortable. allowing your awareness to descend into the body, right down to the ground, becoming aware of the sensations where your body is touching the cushion or floor. And then allow your awareness to rise up and fill the entire space of the body, becoming aware of sensations throughout the body. And using the out breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. Completely relaxing all the muscles in the face. All the muscles around the eyes, soft and relaxed. And allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Relaxing more deeply with each out breath. And with each out breath, letting go of any thoughts that may have arisen, happily releasing them. Allowing the mind to come to rest in the stillness of the present moment. Simply focusing on the sensations of the breath throughout the body. Maintaining an ongoing flow of mindfulness of the sensations of the breath throughout the entire cycle of each in and out breath. And if you find yourself drifting into dullness or being spaced out, then use the in-breath as an opportunity to arouse and refresh your focus on the breath. So remaining relaxed and alert. If you find yourself getting caught up in any agitation or distraction, then use the out breath as an opportunity to relax, to release any distractions, and very gently return to focusing on the breath. So relax, release, and return. And then in conclusion, we can dedicate all the positive potential that we've gathered through our time together here today towards our Vipashyana practice, towards our understanding of reality, towards our coming to experience the nature of reality, so that we can reduce our mental afflictions and suffering, so that we can eventually totally transcend all suffering and mental afflictions. But not just for ourselves, but so that we can be most effective in helping those around us also overcome their mental afflictions and suffering. And it's also often traditional to recite a dedication prayer as part of the dedication. So while I read out the dedication prayer from great Indian Master Shantideva, you might like to reflect on the words. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So again, to come out of the corpse posture in your own time, you can bend your left knee, slowly roll over onto the right side. And then you can use both hands to push yourself to an upright seated position. So enjoy your evening, and see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you.